In 2005, two men in Memphis bought two nearly identical houses. The homes were located in the same neighborhood. They were similar in size. Their purchase prices were almost the same. Both men made the same down payment. Both signed 30-year mortgages at an interest rate of 5.9%. Their incomes were also nearly identical, around $46,000 a year. They were roughly the same age, lived under similar circumstances, held similar social positions, and started from almost exactly the same place. Looking at them in 2005, nobody could have predicted how dramatically different their financial lives would become over the next 20 years. One man would nearly own his home outright. The other would still owe more than $250,000 and might continue making mortgage payments until the age of 74. That difference did not begin with a financial crisis. One of them did not win the lottery. Neither inherited a fortune, and one did not suddenly begin earning 10 times more than the other. The difference began with a very small decision made on an ordinary Tuesday, a decision worth only $150 a month. And that is the point of this story. A person's financial life is rarely transformed by one dramatic moment. More often, it is shaped by small decisions repeated for a very long time. The first man moved into his new home and accepted it for what it was. The kitchen was not modern. The wooden cabinets were outdated. The countertops were not made from expensive stone. There were still a few nails in the walls left behind by the previous owner. But instead of tearing everything apart, he simply hung his family photographs on those old nails. He did not need the house to be perfect. He only needed it to be good enough for his family to begin building a life there. After a few months, once everything had settled down, he reviewed his household budget. He realized that after paying all their expenses, the family could afford an extra $150 each month. So he made a simple decision. He set up an automatic payment of an additional $150 toward the principal of his mortgage. Just $150. It was not enough money to impress anyone. There was nothing glamorous about it. Nobody applauded. Nobody called it a brilliant financial strategy. But that money was transferred every single month. Whether he felt motivated or not, whether the market rose or fell, whether other people were buying new cars, remodeling their kitchens, or moving into more expensive neighborhoods, he kept doing it. The second neighbor looked at his home in a completely different way. The moment he moved in, he did not see a place to build a life. He saw everything that was not good enough. The kitchen was too old. The cabinets were the wrong color. The appliances were outdated. The living room lacked character. The backyard needed work. In his mind, there was a huge gap between the house he owned and the house he believed he deserved. The problem was that he did not have enough cash to renovate it. So what did he do? He opened a home equity line of credit, also known as a HELOC. He borrowed $24,000 to remodel the kitchen. New cabinets, new countertops, new appliances, new paint. The kitchen looked amazing. Friends came over and complimented it. The family felt as though their life had moved to a higher level. But while the kitchen was being upgraded, a dangerous habit was also being formed. Whenever there was a gap between what he had and what he wanted, he did not wait and save. He borrowed money to close that gap immediately. This is where many people make a serious mistake. They believe they are improving their quality of life. But in reality, they are training their minds to believe that every desire can be solved with debt. Want a better car? Borrow. Want a new kitchen? Borrow. Want a larger house? Borrow. Want to feel more successful? Borrow again. One man used money to reduce debt. The other used debt to purchase the feeling of progress. From the outside, the second man appeared to be living better. But on the balance sheet, the first man was the one truly moving forward. By 2010, both families had grown. The rooms began to feel smaller. Children's toys covered the living room floor. Closets ran out of space. The dining table was always crowded with things. And at exactly that moment, a real estate agent appeared. The agent told them the market was beginning to recover. Home prices could rise. This might be the perfect time to sell their current homes and move into larger ones. The idea sounded completely reasonable. A growing family needs more space. Their incomes had increased slightly. Banks were willing to lend them more money. The first man considered it but decided to stay. He rearranged the furniture. He made better use of the spare room. He got rid of things the family no longer needed, and he continued paying an additional $150 toward the mortgage principal every month. The second man decided to sell. He moved into a larger, more attractive home in a neighborhood considered to be better. From the outside, It looked as though the second man was winning again. But there was a type of cost that almost nobody noticed. I call it the friction tax. Every time you buy or sell a home, part of your wealth disappears. Real estate commissions, home inspection fees, title insurance, taxes, loan fees, repairs required before the sale, moving expenses, new furniture needed to fit the new house. Altogether, the cost of buying and selling can consume between 8% and 10% of the property's value. For a house worth around $210,000, that could mean losing between $17,000 and $21,000. Still not painful enough? Then look closer. During the first 5 years of a 30-year mortgage, most of the monthly payment goes toward interest. The principal falls very slowly. That means after 5 years, the amount of real equity you have built may be much smaller than you think, and one home sale can wipe out nearly all of it through transaction costs. 5 years of mortgage payments, 5 years of working, 5 years of saving. Yet with one signature on a sales contract, you may find yourself almost back at the starting line. Meanwhile, the man who stayed was beginning to move beyond the most difficult stage of his mortgage. His principal balance kept falling. The additional monthly payments began producing visible results. A larger share of every payment started going toward principal. The math was beginning to work in his favor. This is what many people fail to understand. You do not become wealthy simply because your home increases in value. You build wealth by holding the asset long enough for transaction costs to become less significant, the principal balance to decline, and time to begin working for you. If you dig up a tree every few years and move it to a new field, do not ask why you still have no shade after 20 years. The tree is not weak. The soil is not necessarily bad. You simply never allowed the roots enough time to grow. After moving, the second man began living in a larger house. But a larger house brought larger expenses, a larger mortgage, higher property taxes, higher insurance costs, higher utility bills, more expensive repairs. More rooms meant more furniture. A larger yard meant more maintenance. This is the trap many families walk into. They calculate only the monthly mortgage payment. They do not calculate the true cost of maintaining a larger home. A larger house does not only take more money, it also takes more time, more weekends spent cleaning, more effort spent repairing things, more pressure to maintain a stable income, and once your lifestyle rises, moving backward becomes extremely difficult. The house that once made you feel successful gradually becomes the thing that forces you to keep running. The first man remained in his original home. It was not especially beautiful. It was not impressive enough to make other people jealous. But every month, his true ownership of the house increased. He was not merely living in the property. He was gradually becoming its full owner. The second man lived in the larger house, but the bank still owned most of its value. That is the difference between looking wealthy and being wealthy. Looking wealthy means other people see that you possess expensive things. Being wealthy means you no longer have to make payments on those things. By 2020, mortgage interest rates had fallen to historic lows, around 2.9%. Advertisements appeared everywhere. Refinance today. Lower your monthly payment. Save hundreds of dollars every month. Do not miss these historic rates. The second man looked at the numbers and saw an opportunity. If he refinanced, his monthly payment would go down. It sounded completely logical. Who would not want to pay less every month? But the problem was hidden inside one detail that the advertisements did not emphasize. When you refinance into a new 30-year mortgage, the debt clock starts over. You return to year one. And during the early years of a mortgage, most of your monthly payment goes toward interest. Only a small portion reduces the principal balance. That is how an amortization schedule works. The lender collects a large portion of the interest early. The principal falls slowly at the beginning and faster toward the end. When you repeatedly refinance, you repeatedly push yourself back into the stage where the lender benefits the most. You feel intelligent because your monthly payment has fallen, but the total number of years you will live with the debt has increased. The second man refinanced. His new mortgage would continue until 2050. That meant that if everything went according to plan, he could still be making house payments at the age of 74. Think about that. At an age when income may decline, when health may begin to weaken, when a person hopes to slow down and rest, he could still be sending money to the bank every month. The first man received refinancing offers as well. He could also have reduced his monthly payment. But he did not look only at the amount due next month. He looked at the remaining balance. He looked at the total interest. He looked at the date when the mortgage would finally end. And he understood that a lower interest rate does not automatically make refinancing a good decision. Remember this. A lower monthly payment does not necessarily mean you are becoming wealthier. Many people feel proud because they have reduced their payment by $300 a month, but they fail to notice that they have extended the debt by another 10 years. They save money today by selling away part of their future. That is not financial optimization. It is cosmetic surgery for debt. By 2026, more than 20 years had passed. The first man was still living in the house he purchased in 2005. The home no longer looked exactly the way it did on the first day. Some things had been repaired. The roof had been replaced when necessary. Appliances had been changed when they stopped working. The kitchen had also been improved gradually, using saved cash. But he had never treated the house like an ATM. He had never withdrawn equity simply to purchase a lifestyle that looked more impressive to other people. After more than 2 decades, his remaining mortgage balance was below $18,000. He almost owned the house completely. Before long, the mortgage payment would disappear. His monthly housing costs would then consist mainly of property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, around $300. The roughly $1,139 he had previously sent toward the mortgage could now be invested in an index fund every month. From that point forward, the money would no longer flow to the bank. It would flow into assets owned by him. Every month, he would purchase more shares. Every year, dividends could be reinvested. Compound growth would begin doing its work. This was the point when years of quiet patience began paying him back. The second man was living in a larger house. Perhaps the neighborhood was better. The kitchen was more modern. The living room was more spacious. But he still owed around $252,000. The mortgage would continue until 2050. After more than 20 years of working and making house payments, he still could not clearly see the finish line. The most painful part was not only the $252,000 balance, it was the opportunity cost. The $17,000 to $21,000 lost through transaction fees did not disappear only once. He also lost all the future returns that money could have produced. Had that money been invested in a fund tracking the S&P 500 over a long period, it could potentially have grown into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Depending on the timing of the investments and actual market returns, the total might have reached $300,000 to $400,000. In other words, the second man did not only lose money through real estate commissions and fees, he lost everything that money might have earned over the following 20 years. That is the silent impact of financial decisions. At the moment you make them, the consequences are almost invisible. You see the new kitchen. You see the larger house. You see the lower monthly payment. You do not see 20 years into the future. But the math does. And the math does not care how you feel. There is something important that must be made clear. Not everyone should stay in the same house for 20 years. Some people must move because of work. Some need to live closer to family. Some need access to better schools. Some require a home that is more suitable for their health. Some live in neighborhoods that are no longer safe. Moving is not always a mistake. The mistake is moving without understanding the full cost. The mistake is looking only at the new house while ignoring the new debt. The mistake is focusing only on the monthly payment while ignoring the date when the loan will finally end. The mistake is believing that a larger house automatically means greater wealth. The biggest mistake is using debt to purchase the appearance of a successful life. Before moving, ask yourself, how much money will I lose through transaction costs? How much additional interest will I pay? Will the new mortgage extend my debt for many more years? What is the true cost of maintaining the new house? Am I moving because of a genuine need, or because I am bored with what I already have? What would happen if I stayed for another 5 years? What would happen if I invested the money instead of spending it on renovations or moving costs? These questions are not exciting, but they may save you from decades of unnecessary debt. Imagine your first home as a tree. When it is first planted, it provides almost no shade. Its roots are shallow. Its trunk is thin. During the early years, nothing seems particularly impressive. You water it. You care for it. You wait. Sometimes you wonder whether it is growing at all. But if it is left undisturbed, the roots begin reaching deeper into the ground. The trunk becomes stronger. The branches spread wider. Eventually, it becomes a place that provides shade and protection for the entire family. But if you dig up that tree every few years because another piece of land looks more attractive, the tree will never become fully grown. The roots are repeatedly damaged. Its development is repeatedly interrupted. After 20 years, you may have planted trees in 4 different places and still have no meaningful shade. Wealth works the same way. It needs uninterrupted time. Time for the mortgage principal to fall. Time for the asset to appreciate. Time for transaction costs to be spread across many years. Time for compound growth to accelerate. Weak people always demand immediate results. They want the beautiful house now, the expensive car now, the appearance of success now, and because they lack patience, they borrow money from their future to purchase the feeling of success in the present. Do not live that stupidly. Do not sacrifice 20 years of freedom just so other people can compliment your kitchen for 20 minutes. Nobody cares about your stone countertops for as long as you imagine. Nobody cares about your zip code as much as you think, but the bank will remember exactly when your payment is due. Every month, for 10 years, for 20 years, maybe even for 30 years. A financial life is rarely destroyed by one enormous, obviously stupid decision. It is slowly eroded by small decisions that sound reasonable and are repeated too many times. One loan for a kitchen renovation, one move into a larger house, one refinance to lower the monthly payment, one home equity withdrawal to cover another expense. Each decision appears manageable on its own, but combined over 20 years, they can create a difference worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Financial freedom does not usually come from one brilliant moment either. It often begins with one boring decision, paying an extra $150 every month, staying a little longer, not upgrading before it is truly necessary, not borrowing money to satisfy an emotion, not restarting the mortgage clock simply because an advertisement sounds attractive. One small decision, repeated consistently, for a long enough period of time, that is how an ordinary person builds a life that is no longer controlled by a bank. So before you move into a larger house, before you borrow money to remodel the kitchen, before you refinance just to reduce your payment by a few $100s, stop. Look beyond the next 30 days. Look beyond the next year. Look at your life 20 years from now. Every decision to move or stay carries an invisible cost. That cost does not appear immediately. It accumulates quietly, and by the time you finally see it, 2 decades may already have passed. Plant the tree. Take care of it. Do not dig it up simply because the field next door looks greener. Most importantly, give time the chance to do its work.